think we're good.
We're all set.
I think we're good to go.
All right. Perfect. Why don't we jump right in then?
Yeah, I'm just checking out YouTube here for a second.
Got my nice 7 p.m. coffee.
I think we're good here. We got a couple people watching. Yeah, so let's do some sourcing. Profitable brands. You know, like how many times do you get that question where it's like, how do I find these suppliers?
I literally got it today.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's a very unique sort of approach because it's like a lot of people old-fashioned way are, searching Google, distributors, wholesalers, but it's a different sort of niche to be contacting brands. Um, and with Smart Scout is something that we started introducing this year, and it's just really been a game changer for us.
Yeah, and we're looking for different things too. Yeah, brand direct. We're looking for characteristics of brands and listings and things like that that you're not typically looking for with, distributors or larger brands per se. Smart Scout has definitely helped with that a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I could dive into a screen share here. So we got some questions coming in. You want to save the questions to the end, or you want to just keep answering them as we go?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can kind of answer them as we go, just so they're relevant. Best way to reach out to brands for brand direct. Now we have to offer value, but we need to reach out via email, phone, or what? Any special strategies or tips? We were actually just talking about this, about the email versus phone versus, some of it is predicated on what information that you have. So, if you only have an email, obviously you can't call. If you only have a contact form, you have to use that. But if you have all three of those, contact form, email, and phone number, I think for me, when I'm choosing how to reach out, I think it depends on the caliber of the product. For one, is this a product and a brand that like warrants a call right off the bat? A lot of times we will email first, just because it makes it so that when you pick up the phone, they say, "Hey, have you sent us an email?" And you say, "Yes, we have." So it's case by case, really. But I think that there's no substitute for a phone call, but sometimes it's best to email, from my experience, my opinion, just to get a first touch, initial contact. And then if they don't respond to those, obviously you can use other methods of reaching out.
Yeah, and that's what we were saying before. It's like by emailing them first, you're sort of weeding out certain ones that are just not worth pursuing. But I always say it's really to get a full gauge on the interest level of the prospective supplier. Making the phone call allows you to hear tonality. If I send an email, say we're interested in opening a wholesale account, I get a binary response, right? It's yes, we're interested, no, we're not. Whereas with a phone call, you could sort of poke and prod and determine, what their motivations are and why they might not be interested in working with Amazon sellers. So I think at some point or another, I think a phone call happens. You know what I mean? Whether it's on the initial one or after that.
Yeah, definitely. Just using emails as like a vetting process. But I mean, we have it set up on an automated system for emails, so it's kind of like it doesn't require a ton of work on our end. But yeah, phone calls are always the way to go if you had to pick one.
Yeah. Can you see my screen, Brandon?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. So I want to just dive into something, with Smart Scout that I was playing around with earlier this week. And I mean, for us, Smart Scout is not something we actually implemented until early this year. So we were doing, manual reverse sourcing storefront stalking. I mean, storefront stalking is pretty much the bread and butter of how we find these profitable brands. But Smart Scout really provides, an insight into analytics. It allows you to very easily reverse category source. So if you're just starting selling on Amazon, it's like you go to the Amazon page and you're bombarded with all these different categories, and it becomes very difficult to niche down into subcategories because everything in your face on Amazon is number one bestsellers. Like, if I go to whatever the category is here and let's just say go to, let's say, if I go to like beauty and health and then go to skincare, right? Like I'm going to be bombarded with best selling products. So it's going to take so long for me to niche down and find like the smaller to mid-sized companies that we're after, right? And Brandon, we were talking about this, like we say the right kinds of companies, we say small to mid-sized, but it's like everybody asks, what does that mean, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you define that?
Yeah, and we can put a number on that with Smart Scout as well, which is really nice as far as like monthly revenue, things like that. But I mean, one thing to like keep in mind is that when we talk about small to mid-sized company, it doesn't mean that they don't have any sales. We're just not reaching out to Hasbro, right? Like we're not reaching out to Maybelline for beauty. It's to mid-size, could be 2 owner, could be 1 owner, and it could be a team of people, but it's still considered a small to mid-sized company in the grand scheme of things. Think of small to mid-size as someone that you can get on the phone with the owner, or someone on a decision-making level. That's kind of how we define small to mid-size. Is you're able to talk to a decision maker. You're not going to be able to do that if you talk with someone in Maybelline.
Right. And I think that a common misconception is small to mid-size, small revenue, right? It's not small revenue. Like we're after, big revenue companies to a reasonable extent, but more intimate work setting where, we can build a relationship with either the brand owner or, like you said, a high level decision maker. So point being, Smart Scout allows you to do the sourcing, it allows you to streamline the sourcing. So rather than being on Amazon and, clicking on any one of these categories and then going through the trouble of continuing to niche down, because you're going to be, like I said, bombarded with all products that are sold directly by Amazon or, 1P sellers. So with Smart Scout, we can very easily kind of high level set a filter criteria under the brand tab. So if you guys have Smart Scout, or anybody, watching this at any point is, if you're using Smart Scout, what we'll do is we'll go to the brands tab and then we'll go to the filters and just like set some generic parameters for what we're looking for. And this is generally the target of, I would say, like the small to mid-sized range. So if we look at something between $20,000 in monthly revenue to, I would say, even like $250,000 in monthly revenue, that kind of gives us that range. And then we're also looking, we want at least 2 sellers on the listing. With when the brand is the only one on the listing, like that's not something that we're going to pursue. But if the brand is on the listing and then there's several other sellers, that's something we'll still pursue. So it's sort of like a give and take. I would say average at least a minimum of 2. And then we want our ASP at least $10, because generally speaking, anything under $10 is going to be tough. There's definitely exceptions to that. But from, a general search, and then you can just go ahead and hit search. And what Smart Scout's going to do, it's going to filter out and populate a list of different brands that fit within those parameters.
Yeah. And something to keep in mind too, I mean, when it comes to, like you mentioned about the brand being the only seller, I mean, in Brand Direct, we're trying to provide value. We're trying to get our foot in the door in a way other than just throwing money at them like you might do with a distributor. And so if there's one seller, it's the brand, they're selling direct, they're FBA, like, there's really not a lot. Like if the listing's optimized, it's hard to convince a brand to be like, hey, no, we actually want you to change everything that you're doing that's already working and go with us. So that's one exception that will kind of make, we'll walk away from it essentially, for the most part, unless there's some other factor. If it's, the brand's the only seller, they're selling direct, they've got things under control. That's kind of an exception that we make where we choose to, move on basically at that point, because there's really no other value that we can provide at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll, when we look at Smart Scout, I know, like this is more of a recent approach that I've taken. When I'm reaching out, Brandon, I know you're doing sort of the same thing now, which is, not neglecting companies with like 15 to 20 sellers on the listing, because that could be an opportunity to convert them into an exclusive, or maybe a very selective, right? You're not going to convert them to an exclusive on the first call. It's a very much so a crawl, walk, run process, so I'm almost looking for products where their listings are a mess, right? They have map violations, pricing issues, no listing optimization. And then we're going in and looking to basically clean things up for them. And that's where the value comes in, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the intangible that we have here. Like, yeah, you can put in monthly revenue, we can see all that, but the intangible for you as a brand direct, wholesale seller, is to be able to go on that listing and pick apart those things. And sometimes, like you said, I mean, the worse the listing is, almost the better in certain regards. So, it just depends.
Yeah. So it's like the first column I'm looking at is average number of sellers, because it's just a good way to like weed things out. I'm obviously ignoring books. So like, I don't know, this is the first thing that catches my eye. I'm not in love with the electronics category, but it's like, okay, 14 sellers. Maybe it's something we can take a look at it.
We want to stay away from something like Fenty Beauty, which, big brand. I think it's Rihanna. Stay away from, all that stuff. We want to, again, just because it's doing that revenue does not mean we want to jump on it.
Yeah. Chances are, if it's a brand that is in every household, or it's something you've heard of like on a regular basis, it's probably outside of the revenue range that we're targeting. And this is, estimated monthly revenue for this brand, so I mean, it could vary. So if we go, this Muxa, let's see what they're about. Yeah, and you're gonna have to weed through this, because like you'll get like Chinese products and knockoff products, and obviously we're not interested in that. So let's.
When we take a look at that DIVI, kind of like that one.
Yeah, I feel like these strings of letters might be like Chinese products, but I don't know for sure. My Scouts keeps popping up. What do they got? 2 sellers, 3 sellers,
28,000 beauty.
See, like, first thing I'm thinking is their listing is already optimized.
Yeah. I mean, this is quite literally the exact process that we're using to find the brands that we are. I mean, part of this, guys, is to walk you through the thought process, and I think that's really important, because you can use the software and all that, but walking you through what our thought process is. Initially saying, hey, this looks like, I don't know the name of this brand, I haven't heard of it. Let's click on it. Brad says, hey, the listing is optimized, so that's the first thing I notice. They're all points in one category or the other. To say, we're going to pursue this, or we're going to, maybe pass on this brand. So optimized listing, probably a point in the negative direction.
Yeah. So we're probably going to close them out, because you got to offer value. That's over the years how we built our business, is by offering value to brands, right? Like, and if there's not an opportunity to improve, then it's not really an opportunity, right? So you just keep scrolling, and like, this is literally just the process that that we're taking. We're just kind of weeding through things and combing it out. And my thing keeps popping up here, but it's like, it can be a tedious process, but once you start doing it frequently,
yeah. So I mean, let's hold on this listing real quick and just talk about the things that might be positives in terms of us. Negatives for the listing and the brand are positives for us, in the sense that we want to be able to improve upon something. So, I mean, we're looking right here at, we have 3 different pictures, which, I mean, the maximum that you can use on Amazon is a lot more than 3. Is it 9 now that you can use, I believe?
You can do 9, but they won't all be visible to the customer. So you can put 6 images. Usually what I say to brands is 6 images in a video slot.
There, yep.
Yeah.
So, that's definitely a key point to this listing, that if we were to pursue it, it would be a point of, contention that we bring up to the brand owner, if we reach out to them, is that the imagery really does not do a whole lot for the product, especially right there. It's showing what the back of the bottle looks like is kind of unclear. Even if you zoom in on it, it's a little bit hard to see some of the things that are on there as far as directions, things like that, that would convey to the customer to purchase. I mean, you got to remember, online we're buying, you can't touch, feel, smell, you can't do any of that. Everything has to be based on the image and the perception that the product has through, its listing.
Yeah. And this is exactly what we're explaining to the brands, right? Like, in one way or another, whatever the rhetoric that we're using is, at the end of the day, these are the kinds of things that we're explaining to brands, is just educating them on a phone call, right? So like Brandon pointed out, there's 3 images on this listing. I don't see any lifestyle photography. And 9 out of 10 customers are shopping on their mobile phone. They're looking at price, reviews for social proof, and images, right? So they're just scrolling through the images and looking to make a purchase. And a customer might very easily jump off of this listing because the images are not captivating them to make a purchase. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, do you see any bullet points on here?
I was just going to say that was the next thing. I mean, no bullet points. They look like they have they look like they have a store.
Do they have a store? Let's see.
It looks like they do.
Yeah, they do. I think it's got more opportunity. They don't have tabs up here. It's got a little bit of brand marketing, but I think there's more that can be done with it. But like I said, I'm not seeing any bullet points, for one. So that's an SEO issue, right? If there's, not only is this aesthetic stuff, guys, like, you got to appeal to Amazon's algorithm in order to rank in a customer search. Like, if there's no keywords in the listing, generally speaking, if it doesn't have a ton of brand equity, is not going to appear in the customer search.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into that in this video, but Smart Scout can do all of that as well. So it can, optimize listings via AI and things like that.
Yeah. And the next thing I'm looking at is, like, sellers, and it does look like there's a few different sellers selling it, but I would say, like, if I had to put a guess on it, this guy might have like some sort of exclusivity, and maybe they're weeding some things out with other sellers just because he has a ton of stock and nobody else has that much stock. You know what I mean? Would you agree with that, Brandon?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just looking as well that, there's a variation listing. So you've got 2 other variations of the product. You actually got a 12 pack, and then you've got a 6 pack as well. So definitely interesting.
And they do have control over their pricing. So I'm seeing, they generally have a semblance of map, right? If this price was all, and we're not covering keep in this video, that's for another day. But if this price was all over the place, again, that would be another value prop for them.
Yeah.
A value prop that I've been using, and this one just like seems to hit home for whatever reason, is this idea that competitors are capitalizing on their brand by running ads on their page.
Exactly.
Right? So this guy right here is paying in their ad campaign for the keywords associated with this brand in order to appear right here, right next to the buy box. And conveniently, they're selling it, 20, 30 cents cheaper than theirs. So they're doing this stuff on purpose. And these are all things that we're explaining to brands, right? So if I'm a customer and I'm on this listing, well, it's not captivating. It doesn't have a ton of SEO or anything. And then if I'm a customer and I go to buy it, this ad might stop me from buying it because I say, okay, well, I could buy this product for a little bit cheaper, right? and then maybe I'll go and click on that. So the point is, we can utilize Amazon advertising as a means of brand defense, because we can strategically place our ads for our brands in this spot for other SKUs, which ends up increasing sales on other products and reinforces the brand equity, all while defending the brand from competitors and knockoffs.
Exactly. And even if there's no brand store, it's another point that we use. If there's no brand store, what Amazon will do is, if you click, Brad, you scroll up a little bit and we go back to that. So it says visit the Niagara store. If it did not have a brand store, it would just say brand and then Niagara. And if you clicked on that, instead of redirecting to the brand store itself with all the other products where customers can purchase other products at the same brand, it would redirect to similar products in the category, in which case there actually might be, 4, 5, 10 products, not the Niagara brand, that are showing up in search results before Niagara itself. And again, that's through keywords, things like that. So, brands are using their competitors' keywords to advertise against them to show up in search ranking. And that's something that brands do not understand, and you have to be able to convey to them.
Yeah. I just want to scroll down and see if they have A+ content. No, that's funny. Like, they don't have, like, this listing is complete crap. Like, I mean, they have no A+ content, another sort of thing, right? We see a competitor's ad here, but if we scroll down even further, these are more advertising slots. So again, you can advertise products on Amazon, and you can redirect traffic to other SKUs in your brand line. So if this brand has other items, which they clearly do, and they have some underperforming SKUs, right? Maybe SKUs with like these with only a few ratings, not a ton of volume. I mean, brands love hearing you say that you're also going to promote and drive visibility to other products in their line. Like, Brandon, how many times have you been pitched, oh, we can't give you the best-selling item, but we can give you the shit-selling item?
Right, exactly. And sometimes, in this case, and that's why I was saying it's a variation listing, you've got 3 different sizes of the product. I mean, I would probably take a guess and say that based on the type of product this is, they have other products that have multiple sizes as well. And so you could offer to, merge those listings together. Merging listings, you take a parent ASIN and you connect other listings, other ASINs to it. And the goal is to draw the traffic from the better selling listing and kind of disperse that amongst the other 2 or 3 or however many variations that you add onto the listing. So you could offer that as a value add for them as well. Looks like they have multiple quantities of different products.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm gonna be honest with you. If we weren't on this call, I'd call this brand right now. Like, this is a perfect example of a brand that I would contact, with the one exception, which is the fact that, you just have to bear in mind that it looks like they might have some sort of exclusivity either in the progress or something very selective, right? And the reason why I say that is because this guy has 1,000 units roughly. Well, this guy has 1,000 units too. So you just don't know. You never know until you make the phone call and reach out and step out.
What's the sales velocity? I don't know if we even
didn't touch on that.
checked. Yeah, so it's flying.
Yeah, strong volume. You're looking at
what's that's probably 2,500 units a month, I would say, at that rank.
Well, yeah, Keep is saying it's like 3,000.
3,000.
I know this is a fairly new tool on Keepa, but saying like 3,000. I mean, I would say it's doing like 3,000 at least.
3,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So look at that. I mean, that's, again, and maybe they have issues with unauthorized sellers. So I'm, peeking at this because it's like, okay, what's with this like immediate influx of more sellers, So it's like all of these little things are what add up, and you just never know until you actually make the call, do the outreach, So I think that's a little bit of a good segue into talking about how we approach brands. Would you say that that's a good idea?
I was going to say one last point on that too, was that if you have a sudden influx of sellers, I mean, they might be selling this product to retail stores and people are buying it and arbitraging it. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, just to recap this sourcing process, it's like, how long did that take us to find that brand? Like, if we sat here for 2 hours, like we could put together a list of 50 to 100 companies in a couple of hours and then just contact all of them, the following week. So you can very easily train a virtual assistant on doing this
Yeah.
and meeting the parameters that you're looking for, populate all this information in a spreadsheet like this, right? And then, you make the call or you send the email, you have the information for the listing up on your screen while you're talking to them so that you can speak to these different points. And again, it takes time with the outreach. You're going to fumble on your words at first. And I mean, do you remember your first call, Brandon? I mean, I do. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I did my first calls with you, and it was like, I mean, you probably remember more vividly than I do. Like, I didn't want to pick up the phone, and so it's something that you learn. It's like anything else. You do it hundreds and thousands of times, you get really good at it. But yeah, again, that process was us explaining it, right? Like every single step, everything that we pointed out, in that process, as far as the brand, I mean, that's all mentally done within 30 seconds, I would say,
yeah.
from looking at thousands and thousands of listings. So, realistically, the process is very quick. We're just explaining it step by step.
Yeah. And I think honestly, it's less than 30 seconds. Like how quickly do you look at this list and you're like, all right, images are pretty good.
Yeah, I've already said
Yeah.
no. Yeah. So optimized bullet points. We've got
You get the brand on it too.
the brands on it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the case where they might allow you to sell, but realistically, because I know the thing to remember is, let's say that even if they have map, sometimes the brand will come in below map. I've had that happen. And it's like, all right, well, doesn't seem fair, but they're getting it at a much cheaper price than you are because they're the manufacturer. So sometimes the brand will undercut things like that if they're on the listing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, once you start going down the rabbit hole, it never ends. Like, and then the other thing, before we wrap up this sourcing segment of it, it's like, this is a bad example because the brand's the only one selling it. But like, if I pull up any other product here, we could even go back to the one I was on before. But like, let's see, this said 11 sellers. If we click on this, yeah, it doesn't look bad. I mean, they have 35 sellers, which is not a good situation to be in as a brand. So you could possibly educate them on that. But aside from that, just the point I wanted to make here is like, you could now go into the stores of these other sellers. And this looks like a Japanese brand. So bad example, but like, yeah, really, they're all Japanese sellers. So it's like, but the point is like, you could continue niching down and go into more stores from that brand and then go into other stores and then source products from those stores. So it's like this rabbit hole that never ends. Like there's hundreds of thousands of brands out there. And like, if we spent the rest of our lives sourcing them, we wouldn't even cover a fraction of how much opportunity is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So when people say, there's no opportunity on Amazon, there's no, it's just not true. I mean, even in small to mid-sized companies, small to mid-sized brands, storefront stalking, whether you're doing it manually, whether you're using a tool like Smart Scout, I mean, there's just so much opportunity. It's just about understanding the differences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, we should maybe transition a little bit to outreach and how we approach these kinds of brands, because it's a very unique approach. So many sellers that I've seen, right? Like, and this could be sellers like we're literally competing with, right, on a listing. How many times have we been going toe to toe with some of these other sellers, like trying to beat them into an exclusive?
Right.
And all of these guys, it absolutely amazes me. They think so transactionally. It's like, here's this amount of money, give me this,
Yeah.
right? like their line of thinking doesn't go beyond that first transaction. So when you articulate and showcase to the brand, hey, here's what we're looking to do for the long term, here's where how we could provide these intangible value props. I mean, that's what's created the success in our business, right? It's like,
Yeah. I mean, and part of that is knowing and understanding what the supplier's pain points are, what the brand's pain points are, and what they care about. There are some suppliers that if you don't think transactionally, they're never going to deal with you. I mean, we've had those where, you can talk about brand image and optimizing the listing and doing all these things, and realistically, they don't care about anything but money. And then there's the complete opposite. So going back to being on the phone versus emailing, I mean, you're never going to know that information unless you're on the phone with them. You're never going to be able to tell what their pain points are, and most people, will not pick up the phone and call, which is definitely, if you can do that, you're already ahead of the game. But yeah, being on the phone, understanding what the motivating factors are, you're completely right on that.
yeah, I mean, and it's just so crazy to watch like the evolution of our business in you know the way the calls went in the beginning versus like the way the calls are now. Like I mean, we literally have an answer for everything. If a brand has an issue, it doesn't matter what their issue is. Like we literally have a solution lined up for them. And something that we've really been focusing on this year is like there was a period of time where we were just, it's like, all right, we're interested in opening a wholesale account. And that was the focus. It was just getting products in the inventory, which is good. That's where what you want to do in the beginning. But there came a point where it was like, we got the experience, we have the references, right? We have been working with a number of different brands. We've built out successful listings and PPC campaigns and things of that nature. And we're like, all right, like, you build up a certain level of clout, right? And now you can approach these brands in not just a more confident manner, but you can approach them because you have the results to back it up. Here's the brands that we work with. And so I think when you get to that point, that's when it really just starts. Like, I mean, it can snowball either, like, even if you're just buying, products from distributors or brands directly, like if you're just buying and selling, that could snowball too. But I think the whole idea of having references and working with other brands creates just like a snowball that keeps it rolling.
Yeah, exactly. I always use the example just because I think, for most people it's relatable, right? Like they've been in some form of relationship, in their life. And let's say that you just got out of a terrible relationship. You're going to be, afraid, and you're going to be scared that that's going to continue in your next relationship, which, just there's no factual information, right? It's a completely different person. But it's the same thing with these brands on Amazon, because their experiences with their representatives, and it really is a relationship at the end of the day for us, with brands and with brand owners, is their last relationship might not be so great. And it might have really done things to damage their perception of what Amazon sellers are like. And so your job is to be able to flip the script and to be able to allow them to trust you. And again, as Brad said, that's through that crawl, then walk, then run. Because, realistically, if you start to pitch exclusivity on the first call, you might scare them away. So
It's like saying, let's jump in the bed on the first date. It's like,
exactly.
you're gonna take me out to a drink first, you're gonna buy me dinner. Like it's literally what it is, man. It's like literally it's just building relationships. This is a relationship business. And I mean, like I wasn't when I first started this, I had never made a single cold call in my life, but it's a skill that you learn, right? It's a skill that you learn and you get more confident in doing it. And when you continue to get more results, it just keeps snowballing. Like there's no other way to put it. And like our approach now is very much so tailored to, being we somewhat have a pitch of like an agency type model, but we position it as, hey, like it's more so like we're reselling their products, right? So it's like kind of a double value add. We're like, hey, and by the way, we're also going to buy, products from you too, right?
Right, exactly. We actually have another question in here. It says, do you provide the value during a phone call or on a video? And that's something that we actually started implementing this year, which I think was really good. That one of our colleagues kind of told us about. Maybe we're not up on the times technologically, but using Loom. If you haven't used Loom before, it's a way to do exactly this, to record your face, and to be able to screen share at the same time and walk someone through things. And there's phone is great. Even better is in person. But if you can't get in person, doing a video, doing something like that is great. We also, at a certain point with suppliers and brands, once we get to a certain point with them, we always try to schedule a Zoom or a Google Meet or something like that to be able to talk to them and put a name to a face and just, again, develop that relationship, because really that's what it's about, is developing the relationship. And you can get more of a trusting and just a better idea of who they are as a person, facial expressions, excuse me, and things like that. When you're talking to them on Zoom or on Google Meets or even on a Loom.
Yeah, no, I love Zooms. I mean, I freaking love Zooms. Like, relationships that we've built have been escalated much quicker because of the face-to-face interaction. Like you said, it's one thing to talk to somebody on the phone, it's another thing to see their face. And like as soon as they see like how passionate we are about this, and how like how much conviction we talk with when we're pitching, and showing them all these different things, like it speaks volume. Like I've said this, on social media, it's like we've literally taken deals, exclusive deals from companies that are way larger than us, that were offering the brand more money than us. But because we are so passionate about what we're talking about and how convicting we sound, and how like, we just know what we're talking about, like that speaks volume, and the brand gravitates towards that, and they identify it, especially if you're working with a business owner, right? Because they know what it's like to, be passionate, and really, identify with the business and enjoy what you're doing, so that's
Yeah, and even going farther than Zoom and stuff like that. I mean, we've flown out to places to see suppliers. We've had suppliers out here. Um, just anything that you can do, but you have to realistically know when that's appropriate and when that's not, and how far along you are in the relationship, when that makes sense.
right. Yeah. And I mean, for the new Amazon seller, or the new person trying to get into wholesale, like, just sort of dipping their toes in the water, like some of these things that we're talking about, like, flying out to brands, and doing Zoom calls and showing them, picking apart their listings, right? Like, it's going to take you some time to get there. Like, you're not going to be doing those things on call one, right? But the key is making call one.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
because if you don't make call 1, there will never be call 1,000, and you'll never be able to pitch these different things. So it's like you learn as you go. And yes, you can buy courses, learn from people in the community, but at the end of the day, it's all about doing the action yourself and getting the experience and falling on your face, right? You're going to stumble on your words. I still do it now. How many times have you fumbled a phone call? Like, I do it quite frequently, so it's like it's just it's reps, man. It's like anything else. You go to the gym, you want to see results, you got to put the work in. It's just reps. Like if you're not doing the inputs, if you're not doing the 100 calls a week, you're not going to get results, because it's a numbers game. You're going to close 3% of those accounts if you're good in the beginning. And if you're contacting 20 brands a week, you're going to get nowhere if you're contacting 100 to 150, like we did when we were really trying to grow. You're going to close 3% of those, 2% of those. If you have sales experience, I think you can get up to 3-4% in the beginning. If you're just starting out, maybe 1%. But again, if your top line goes up, what you're closing is a percentage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just there's no substitute for execution. I always say, I use the saying, can't overplan, you can't over execute. So just to second that, buying all the courses in the world aren't going to help you if you don't put in the reps.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if we got any other last minute questions here, you guys can throw them in. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe. This will be posted to YouTube. So if you guys want to go back and watch some of this stuff, you will absolutely be able to do that. If you want to throw a comment on the video, we'll be able to go back in and answer it.
Yeah, for sure. Or if there's any other questions, message on any other platform as well, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, anything. But we're going to be doing these pretty frequently. We're going to try to be doing them every Wednesday so that we can walk you guys through some more sourcing, answer any questions that you might have, and just, connect with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to it. We got an event next week we're going to, which is the pattern event. Brandon and I and our other buddy and / colleague, Matt, are going to be headed out to Utah for the Accelerate event, which is they're the largest brand direct wholesaler in the world, pattern. So there's going to be some real amazing people that are at that conference. There's going to be some amazing speakers, some famous speakers. And it's just, again, getting yourself out there, meeting, networking. The ROI on these events, guys, like we didn't do events for a while, but we've gotten very much so into that this year and last year too. Trade shows, networking events, Amazon selling communities, the whole works. It's like the ROI on it, that stuff is just, it's intangible.
Yeah, get involved in the community. It's like, we had times when we were at Miami Seller Conference where one sentence, one answer from one person paid for the whole trip, and so get involved because you can't measure that kind of return. So we didn't do it for years, and now we're really grateful that we started, and we're continuing to just be as involved as we possibly can in the community. So
it's trade shows too. Like if you're doing Amazon wholesale trade shows, no matter what level you're doing, like just that face-to-face interaction, the experience that you get there. We've closed some really good deals at trade shows. Like, it's just getting yourself out there, showing the initiative, and it'll pays off.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I'm not seeing any questions coming in. So we'll probably close this out here. Again, if you guys want to go back and watch this, it's going to be on YouTube. Like, subscribe, whole works, and appreciate it.
All right.
Peace out.